Welcome to Shoot the Hostage. I am Dan.
And I'm Sarah, and we're a movie show that covers 8 films each season, tied together by a central theme. This season, the theme is folklore.
We cover everything from explosive action to spine-tingling horror and everything in between. And as a heads up, we don't hold back on coarse language or specific plot details, so listener discretion is advised.
This podcast is brought to you by our amazing patrons, without whom the show would not be possible. If you'd like to help out and access all of our bonus content, including new reviews and rap shows, all the relevant links will be in the show notes.
And if you're not a Patreon person, but you would still like to help out, you could rate and review us on your podcast player of choice. Tell a friend and get them to rate and review us as well. Or come follow us and interact with us on social media, mostly Instagram, X, Threads, TikTok, all at sch_pod. Without further delay, here's this week's episode. We hope you enjoy it and stick around.
The podcast is coming from inside the house.
Yes, the podcast is coming from inside the house.
Or, if you're commuting, that makes 0 sense. We're covering Black Christmas.
Yes. On Christmas Day,
On
we're
Christmas
releasing
Day
this episode. So
of all days.
if you are listening on Christmas Day, then I guess happy Christmas.
Yeah, I
or
hope you've
whatever
had a
you're
lovely
doing.
day so far. I hope you're full of yummy food.
I hope you're suitably pissed if you drink. If you don't drink, I hope you've had some nice alcoholic replacement.
A nice glass of Schlur.
Yeah. 0% Guinness or something.
Yeah. Do you know,
perhaps.
that's not bad. I like it.
I didn't love it.
Oh, well, each to their own.
We'll do a supplementary episode where we review cans of Guinness.
It's going to get old very quickly.
Well, we're on the red wine.
We are, yes.
So we're celebrating our Christmas Day.
In November.
In November, yeah. Don't give the game away. It's a secret.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
As you mentioned, Black Christmas.
Yeah.
So
The Black Christmas.
The.
We should, we should differentiate because there are 3 to date.
But this is the first one. I watched the original one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did I.
good.
Don't worry.
Okay. We're going to have to put the year in the title of this episode.
We are, yeah.
Just
For
in
a
case.
couple. For a couple this season.
Yeah. Yeah. Good shout.
Yeah.
The entire week, I've been, in my head, going, Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Why?
But this is not that movie.
No. That was a decade later and a very different film.
Yeah. So I guess this one is sort of looked at as an early slasher movie.
Yes. Some people credit this with being the first, well, one of the first, if not the first. But obviously Peeping Tom beat it to the slasher game and the killer POV game by a good 14 years.
Okay. Also, Psycho was before this.
Psycho was the same year, yeah, 1960. So
yeah,
there were some proto-slashers hanging around.
This definitely feels like it's kind of setting the mold in many ways.
Yeah.
I do think this is a bit of an outlier for me in terms of slasher movies.
Yeah, you're not a fan generally, are you?
No, not the biggest fan. Maybe we'll get into that. But
yeah,
it kind of, Halloween was a few years after this.
78, 4 years after.
Yeah, and I suppose that one could be looked at as the one that kicked off the horror franchises, maybe. Or the slasher franchises.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the slasher craze kind of went insane in the 80s.
Yeah.
And Halloween was the one, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I heard actually that Tom Savini came up with the idea for slasher movies.
Yeah. He invented everything.
Yeah.
Don't you know?
That's right.
So, 1974, directed by Bob Clark.
He had a movie out the same year that this came out called Dead of Night.
Yeah, which I haven't seen, sadly.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one at all.
He's most well known for, to my mind anyway, Black Christmas and A Christmas Story, which are such different movies.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen A Christmas Story, but I'm familiar with he's got glasses boy. And
yeah.
blonde, you know, the kid.
The child.
The child.
Yeah, he's not a child anymore. He's a grown man.
No, I know
believe it
how
or not.
time works.
But that movie's why I say fragile.
What? Because the kid says fragile.
It's a kind of running gag about the leg lamp. Never mind.
Leg lamp.
2 words which shouldn't come together, and yet
He directed Porky's.
he did. Yeah, kind of very, very bizarre resume this man had.
Yeah.
From a really kind of dark, quite bleak proto-slasher to a raucous sex comedy.
And Karate Dog.
Karate Dog. I'm not familiar with Karate Dog. Please,
What? You've never
please
seen Karate Dog?
regale me with the synopsis for Karate Dog.
Everybody's seen Karate Dog. I can't believe you haven't seen Karate Dog.
I mean, do you know what? I am quite a big fan of
Karate Dog.
Dogs doing human things movies.
Yeah, there's that basketball one.
Air Bud.
Yeah.
There's about 12 of them. Movies, not dogs.
Yeah, there's obviously Jerry Lee in K9, who's a police officer.
Yeah.
And the finest police officer.
Could he do karate?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe he was Karate Dog.
Maybe he was Karate Dog.
Maybe it's like a spiritual sequel to K9.
Oh, I like that idea.
Let's go with that.
Yeah, that's forever cemented in my memory now.
Okay. But back to Black Christmas. First of the seasonal slashers. Obviously, after this, we had My Bloody Valentine, Graduation Day, April Fool's Day, Mother's Day. There's everything.
Yeah, everything day.
Yeah. Thanksgiving. So this wasn't a first watch for either of us, was it?
No. I saw this relatively recently. I don't know if it was a year ago or 2 years ago.
I think it was 2 years ago.
But we watched it on Christmas Day, right?
New Year's Eve.
Oh, okay.
Weirdly.
For some reason, I'm thinking that we watched it on Christmas Day.
And you've just reminded me that New Year's Evil is a movie that I could have cited as a seasonal slasher movie.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, we watched it a couple of years ago. So that was the first time you'd seen it, was it?
Yes. Yeah. And I don't remember sort of being familiar with it, really.
No. I was pretty convinced that you were going to dislike this film based on the fact that you're not a fan of slashers.
Yeah.
And that horror is not your kind of first port of call. But you didn't hate it? Question mark?
We're gonna go straight there, are we?
Yeah, I'm asking.
No, of course not. I didn't hate this. I thought this was really quite good.
Okay.
I quite like this movie. I think
Awesome.
it's my problem with the slashers, as I've said many times, is like when they're repeating themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen loads of these movies now, but this was like the first one to do what it did. I know we mentioned 2 other movies that came before this, and there's probably others as well.
Yeah.
But it kind of set the mold for what came later. And I do appreciate that while I'm watching it. And also there are excellent characters, which we'll get into.
Mm-hmm.
There are some really great themes, especially for the era when it was released. You had Roe v. Wade a year before this.
Yeah. I don't know. I was going to talk about that towards the middle of the show, but
Yeah.
I don't know, because I was doing some reading before this, and apparently Bob Clark himself kind of said in his mind this film was so far away from being political. And apparently Olivia Hussey as well, who obviously plays our main character, Jess. I want to say. Yeah. They both have been quoted as saying that the conversations that her and her boyfriend have about the unwanted pregnancy were just kind of to give them a motivation to talk and to bicker. It was nothing more than that. So it certainly sounds like, I consider it a feminist film, but it certainly sounds like they didn't necessarily set out to make one.
I mean, maybe that's more impressive, that you accidentally make a feminist movie.
Yeah, that was not like tokenism or...
It's on the... It must be, if you're writing something, it must be on the, either in your subconscious or you're consciously trying to do it. And if they say they're not consciously trying to do it, then
it's not virtue signaling.
In the zeitgeist. Yeah, exactly. It's probably not virtue signaling. Instead
of a synopsis, let's talk about why we've included it in folklore season. How about that? As you know, I put this lineup together. I had to include Black Christmas. When I was putting the list together, obviously it's my theme. It's my list. Everyone else can get stuffed. But I did kind of go back and forth about what constitutes folklore, like how far can I stretch this? And I was on the fence for a little bit about Black Christmas, but to my mind it fits. It's more of an urban legend than it is folklore.
The babysitter
And the man upstairs is kind of, well, it's sort of loosely based on that.
Yeah.
Which was in itself sort of loosely based on a real life murder. So let's go right back to the beginning. In 1950, there was a 13-year-old called Janet Christman, I'm not sure, who was babysitting a neighbour's 3-year-old. Why the hell a 13-year-old was left in charge of a toddler, I'm not quite sure. Different times.
That's not uncommon.
This is 1950. They probably didn't even lock the doors, which was perhaps their first mistake.
Yeah.
But yeah, somebody broke into the house, really sadly, sorry, trigger warning, raped and murdered Janet. The kid survived, thankfully. He slept through the entire ordeal. But all this time later, the case is still unsolved, which is wild, man.
Yeah.
That's so sad. But yeah, that was kind of used as the inspiration for the story, The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs, which of course is a very bare bones story. Girl babysitting gets a phone call. Somebody says in a very menacing tone, "Have you checked on the children?" I'm paraphrasing. She doesn't think anything of it. They keep calling. Then obviously the children are dead. The call is coming from inside the house. I think she's on the phone to an operator and they tell her to leave immediately. So it's largely thought that was the basis for Black Christmas.
Right.
Which makes sense, but there are a couple of other things that they took inspiration from as well. Bob Clark himself kind of says the bulk of the inspiration was a series of murders that were happening in Montreal around about the same time. And it was kind of the same era for people like Ted Bundy as well. So there was a lot of sort of high profile serial killers at that time. But yeah, it fits. It fits. I will maintain that its inclusion is valid.
Yeah, I think listen, if you can explain it, then it works.
I just did.
And I
justified it.
And you can, so that's fine. It's fine. It works. I heard maybe a variation on that, but that must always be the case. There's always a new twist on these things, and then what becomes a folklore.
Well, exactly. That's what makes them folklore, isn't it? They get told and retold and translated, and they kind of get a little bit amended each time. It's bound to happen. Yeah.
No, it works. It fits. And also, but you had the problem of finding a Christmassy film that was also folklore.
I wanted to do something seasonal, Yeah.
And I can't think of a single other folklore Christmas movie.
Well, it's funny you say that because we're doing another one next week.
We should save that for next year.
We should. Oh, well.
Should we talk about the cast a little bit?
Go for it.
So we've got, obviously, Olivia Hussey as Jess. 90s It. The Tim Curry? Yeah. Tim Curry. Death on the Nile, 1978.
Okay.
Romeo and Juliet, 1968.
Yeah, she was in the news quite recently, actually.
Oh.
There was a legal issue surrounding her and the male star of Romeo and Juliet, and they, I think, attempted to press charges against the director. It's something to do with them sort of being coerced into nude scenes when they were, I don't know, inappropriately young.
Right.
I'm not sure. Please don't quote me on that. But that's the only thing I've heard about her recently.
Okay. Also in Ice Cream Man, the Clint Howard one. I've written down Clont Howard, actually.
Clont Howard.
Yeah.
Ron Howard's brother, Clont.
Clont, yeah. Ron and Clont. That sounds like a cartoon.
Ron and Clont on Sunday mornings, Nickelodeon.
One of them's got a time-travelling gauntlet that only works on Tuesdays.
You're selling it to me.
When he punches the ground, a portal opens and they both jump in it.
That sounds great.
Clint and Ron.
No, Clont and Ron.
Clont and Ron. Yeah. Margot Kidder.
Yes.
Is also
iconic.
in this movie as Barb.
Barb's the best.
Barb is the best. Barb is my favourite character.
No nonsense.
Easily. She's great.
Foul-mouthed, hard drinking. We love Barb.
We love Barb. Yeah. First, obviously, time I was aware of Margot Kidder would have been the Superman movies.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. She was also in the Amityville Horror, which we recently watched.
We did.
Not the Ryan Reynolds one.
No, the good one.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
It's a good movie. Yeah. And she was great in that as well. But outside of those things, I've got Sisters, a Brian De Palma movie, which I hadn't heard of, actually.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, that was remade. Wasn't very good.
It wasn't remade with Amy Poehler and...
No, you're thinking of something completely different. Tina Fey. No, not that one.
That was called Sisters, wasn't it?
You are mistaken,
You've got to clarify these things. Maverick. She was in Maverick. Remember that Mel Gibson
classic?
where he's like, I've got some cards hidden or something.
Yes.
And I'm going to do finger guns at you. And maybe real bullets come out my fingers.
I do vaguely remember that, although I think you're taking liberties.
Yeah, I think I saw it once in 1996. She was in the Halloween 2, the Rob Zombie one, the one that you love.
I will not stand for this. Yeah, she's was a very troubled lady, shall we say.
I don't know much about it, but I have heard that, yes.
Yeah. Quite tragic, her later years.
Really?
From all accounts, yeah.
Keir Delia plays Peter.
Peter. Yeah. Yeah, 2001, A Space Odyssey.
And 2010.
And 2010, yeah.
He came back. But not really. Spoilers for those movies.
Stop.
I can't do that, David. Yeah, he's that guy.
Yeah.
I didn't realise it while I was watching
I didn't think he was one of the apes at the beginning.
He might have been. Maybe he started like the Terry Notary trend. Lynn Griffin plays Claire.
Yes.
And she was in, recently, Thanksgiving.
Was she really?
Yeah.
Oh.
She played Grandma. Remember that character?
Oh,
Grandma?
yeah, of course.
There's a lot of people in that movie. Not going to spoil it, but I don't remember her being in it.
No, I don't.
But I probably wouldn't have recognised her because I'm not familiar with her outside of Black Christmas.
No, and it's been 50 years.
It's been 50 years. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. John Saxon.
The John Saxon.
Yeah, Lieutenant Fuller.
Yeah, typecast.
Typecast as a policeman. He's a policeman in everything.
No, Dean Norris is a policeman in everything.
True. But he's not a policeman, not Dean Norris. John Saxon is not a policeman in Enter the Dragon.
That's true.
He's a gambler and a martial artist. He's great in it.
He's great in everything.
He's great in everything. What I was thinking about this earlier, like, why is he always cast as a cop? And I think it's because as soon as you see his face, he's just got that.
He's got
like,
quite
that cachet, like that.
He's authoritative without being like.
Doesn't lord it over you.
Yeah, he's an everyman.
Yeah, he's got power and responsibilities, but he's careful how he wields it.
Yeah.
And this kind of feels like an Elm Street prequel to me. This movie, like, I swear he's got a 7-year-old girl at home called Nancy, and then he moves to Elm Street and changes his name. What was his name in that? Lieutenant Donaldson.
I buy that theory. I like it.
Although, don't change your name from Fuller to Donaldson because Fuller's much better.
Agreed. Yeah. Marion
Waldman.
Who was Marion Waldman?
Oh, sorry, I just remembered. Also, John Saxon was in Tenebrae.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Right? Well, you want to talk about the Giallo links and stuff?
I will be talking about Giallo links, yeah.
All right. So Marion Waldman plays Mrs. Mack.
Ah, Mrs. Mack.
Mrs. Mack. Easily second favourite character.
I think I've seen a vision of my future in 30 years.
Yeah.
And it's hiding booze in the toilet cistern.
You've got a giant cat. Also, you call your cat a prick.
I do that, yeah.
You do that. Andrea Martin as Phil.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's it for cast, unless you want to...
There
are other people in it.
They're the main players.
Yeah, they're the main players.
We've already mentioned this being... Would you call it a slasher or a proto-slasher? Because it kind of is a slasher.
Proto means the first thing.
Yeah, like prototype.
I would say so. From my limited research and understanding of the movies that came before. Mm-hmm. Yes. What about you? Would you?
I mean, I think so, yeah. It's funny because not only is this kind of incorrectly credited as being one of the first slashers, it's also incorrectly credited as being the first instance of killer POV, which was also Peeping Tom, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay.
They certainly utilised that in Peeping Tom, much more so in this. It's quite prevalent in this one.
It starts that way.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the first thing we see, entering the house.
Yeah.
Which I've been to.
You've been to that house?
I have.
You weren't in the attic, were you?
No. I just went to see if Claude was still there.
Claude's most certainly dead.
Oh,
Claude
no.
was dead before the end of the 70s.
Stop.
It was giant. Heart failure or something.
Oh, stop it.
Sorry. Merry Christmas.
It's just what everybody wants after they've eaten their dinner.
I'm sure the cat's alive and well.
Well, don't be silly. No, but I have visited the house.
Toronto.
Toronto, yes. It's funny because in the trivia that I've read, it kind of says, oh, it's a private house in Toronto, and it's become, they had to rent it out for the production and like do it up.
Yeah.
Because it was sort of not quite in ruins, but it didn't look great. So they had to do a lot of renovation on it. And the trivia goes on to say, and it's a popular tourist attraction. It is not. It is absolutely not. It's down a private road, and we had to sneak because there were cameras everywhere.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's a really big house in a fancy area.
It's not a tourist attraction?
No.
So how did you get in?
I snuck down the road. I didn't get into the house.
Oh, right.
I took photos at the fence outside.
Is it somebody's dwelling?
Yeah, somebody lives there.
Someone's abode?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
Private house.
I did that with Ferris Bueller's house.
Did you?
I drove to Ferris Bueller's house in California, and took photos. And I just thought, I bet these people get really pissed off.
Did you just stand outside going, hey, bada bada?
I tried
so wing, bada.
Yeah. I knocked at first, but then no one answered, so I tried to get in round the back. Yeah, so Toronto, okay. It mostly takes place in and around that house. You've got some other locations.
There are some others, yeah.
The university complex.
Police station,
yeah.
I was never sure if it was actually set in Toronto or set in Canada, but I think it must be, right?
I think it's...
They never explicitly say it.
Well, I assumed it was America. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I should have checked that.
That's kind of what I'm getting at, though. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter.
It could be set anywhere.
It could be set anywhere.
I'm assuming they have the fraternity and sorority system, so it doesn't really matter, does it?
No.
It could be anywhere that there is... oh, shit. What Greek letters is it? I should know that.
What do you mean?
For the sorority house.
What do you mean, Greek letters?
They have like Delta, Kappa, something.
Oh, is that what the triangle and the
Yes.
Z thing is?
Did you not know that?
I didn't. I thought it was just like their logos or something. They're what?
You thought it was logos?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it when you play this character.
What character?
The first day on Earth, man.
I'm not familiar with Greek letters. What can I say? I skipped that.
Like theta, omega, pi.
I'm familiar with pi.
I know you're familiar with pi. Anyway, so it's definitely set in Canada. I'm going to stick with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we said,
Greek language.
Oh my god.
Sorry.
No, you're not.
Derailed you.
So as we said, killer POV is kind of the first thing that we see approaching the house.
I didn't realise that it was POV.
Did you not?
The first time I was watching it, and even the second time actually, I'd forgotten the what the opening shot was. No, I just when it first opens and you see that house in frame, I'm not thinking, oh, this is a POV shot. It's not until I guess it starts moving around because it goes closer to the window, and they close the curtains, don't they?
Yeah.
And then it moves around to some trellis.
Yeah.
And he runs up the trellis. And that's not a good security. Like, I would advise you don't have trellis.
That's the absence of security.
Yeah. So it's not until then that I realised what I was watching was a POV shot. So it was really, like, in my mind, cleverly done and probably unexpected then. As you said, like, these things may have been seen before, but
This is it. Because I'm so familiar with slasher movies, because they are kind of my jam, I never assumed anything else. But yeah, you're right. In 1974, that would have been quite surprising.
Yeah. I mean, other projects, and this is generally how things work, people will come up with an idea or concept and they'll do it. But then it tends to be popularized by other projects that follow it.
I mean, the next big one was Halloween, obviously, that utilized the POV shots. Yeah. Certainly at the beginning, anyway.
Yeah. So I like that opening. I think that's, I don't know, it's quite a good way to just introduce you to what's going on. You know exactly what's happened. You've seen the house. You've seen inside the house. There's a party going on. Straight away, it's telling you this is, the threat. This is what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty quickly, is it Claire?
I don't know who he is. If you're talking about Claire, then yes, it's Claire.
Yeah, okay. Right.
I need more than that.
Yeah, is it Claire?
Who are you talking about?
Claire. I'm talking about Claire.
Then yes, it's Claire.
Okay. All right.
I'm glad we cleared that up.
But Claire, I can't remember how quickly it is from shot one to Claire's demise.
I I mean,
Is there's the phone call in between that? Isn't
they have
there? The initial
they
phone
have the
call.
first phone call before her death.
Right.
Yes, I think it's Jess who answers the phone, and does she yell to everybody else like, "Oh, it's the Mona again"?
It's the Mona again. Yeah. Again,
So-
it's like, oh, there's backstory
There's
here.
precedence,
There's context.
yeah. And then everybody kind of gathers around, and here's the insane ramblings of Billy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember the first time I saw it, but the second time I did laugh at this, and it's maybe kind of an uncomfortable thing. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is insane.
And really coarse and crass and horrendous.
And shocking for 1974.
Yeah.
People were not used to hearing the C word in 1974. And
unless
some
they'd
still
been to see The Exorcist in 1973. In which case, very familiar.
Oh, the 70s, a decade of the C word.
That's why it's my favourite. All the profanity. No, but when they were recording that, they didn't do the audio for the phone calls until after the film was made. So all that the actors had to react to was Bob Clark kind of out of frame, just saying menacing things at them.
Oh, okay.
So they had no idea how coarse it was going to be.
So what you're saying is some of their shock was genuine shock at what the director was howling at them.
Potentially. I have no idea what he actually said. I don't think he's ever gone on record and told people.
It can't be any worse than what was on the actual call, though.
It definitely can't.
Wow, this is dark.
And they've it's gone straight to it.
Yeah, they've gone straight to it. And
they
also
don't muck about.
Also, like, I remember when I was a kid and my mum was like, oh, sometimes people ring up and ring random numbers.
Oh, yeah,
and like breathe
dirty
down the
phone calls. Yeah.
That seems to be a big thing in the 80s, as far as I remember. I don't know. I don't know why it stops, if they close the clubs down or something or whatever. But maybe it still happens on mobile phones.
I mean, nobody's
stuff.
got a landline anymore, so that's sort of
True.
The biggest obstacle to the mouth breathers, isn't it?
It's true, yeah. So I don't know. It has something. Like, it was a cultural thing that happened a lot, and maybe it still happens, maybe it doesn't so much. I don't know. But it was something that was talked about a lot in the 80s.
Yeah.
I remember it being there. So yeah, it's shocking. And also, this guy's pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the scariest part of that call isn't necessarily the vulgarity of what he's saying, because some of that is sort of bordering on funny by today's standards. It's the fact that he sort of, at the very end, almost like composes himself and just says, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
That is like, that gives me goosebumps. That's so scary.
It's nuts. The guy is obviously insane. And he's doing multiple voices. And
yeah.
I guess first time watch, you're not sure if it's what's going on.
Yeah. Like, it could literally be multiple people for all you know.
It could be, yeah. You've really no idea. And I think that sense of confusion adds to it while you're watching it as well, because you've got everything that's set out and you know what's going on. But then also there is this great unknown of something that actually ends up being so close to them. So it's a really interesting film, I think, in that regard.
Yeah. And an interesting sort of conceit to do it that way.
Yeah.
Apparently it was 3 different actors. There were 2 men and 1 woman. I don't believe they're all credited, because to this day, nobody actually knows who the female voice is. I couldn't find that credit anywhere anyway.
Okay.
Which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah. But who did the baby?
I don't know.
Because there was a lot of chatter about a baby.
There was, yeah.
Which people have got their own theories and stuff about what Billy's backstory is, haven't they? And
do you know what? I'm not even gonna entertain that. If you've got a theory, great. I would love to hear it. I'm not gonna offer my own, because to me, the villains of horror stories are so much scarier when they don't have an origin story.
Yeah.
I think, not to harp on about it, but since you brought it up earlier,
the
Rob Zombie's Halloween.
I knew you was going to reference that.
But that's what ruined it for me.
Yeah.
I don't need to know that Michael Myers had a rough home life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Where? Oh no. Like,
yeah.
It's so much scarier when we don't know anything.
I think the subject of those phone calls, it gives me just enough. Because it's like, and particularly when you're rewatching it and you pick out more, because some of it's
a bit unintelligible.
It's hard to hear.
Yeah.
His insanity is obviously a result of some kind of trauma. And I think that's kind of all you need to know. I don't have any other theories about what might have happened.
Oh, good.
Outside of I've heard a lot on different podcasts I've listened to stuff, but I've got nothing new to offer. What they say, it sounds about right to me.
It was the I think
Bad
it was the
Boy.
2006 remake that did sort of expand on that and give Billy a backstory, and that film was not good.
Was it called Backstory Billy?
No.
Backroad Billy. The road.
Back in brackets Christmas.
The road. Yeah, the road to Billy.
Yeah.
Bit disappointing that it wasn't Gary Busey in the loft, wasn't it?
Did you think this was going to be some sort of Hider in the House prequel?
I was hoping, yeah. I was kind of hoping.
He's going to leap down from the attic and say, "Your worst nightmare, butthorn!"
Yeah.
No.
That improves every movie. That adds a star to every movie. I thought that this was going to be a prequel to that and Elm Street.
You are making this out to be far more complicated than it actually is.
I know. I think because it's one of those rare horror movies. I don't know how successful this was, actually. I didn't look up the budget in the box office.
It didn't get very well reviewed, but I think it made something like 6 times its budget.
All right.
It was considered a pretty low budget movie.
Yeah.
To the point where they had to do things like encourage the actors to wear their own clothes.
Okay. So save some money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it did all right.
Which is curious because it never got a sequel. It had a couple of remakes, like you've mentioned, but it didn't become a franchise. And as we said, I guess that didn't really happen until later on in the 70s, where these things are becoming more popular.
Yeah, the 80s was kind of franchise city, wasn't it?
The 80s was the golden era
for
horror franchises, right?
Yeah,
I think.
For sure.
I would say so.
Yeah.
But I think the 70s laid a lot of that groundwork for that.
Yeah, I agree. I do have a sad fact about a sequel that never came to pass.
Oh, all right.
So Bob Clark did want to do one. He managed to, from what I've heard anyway, convince Olivia Hussey to come back on board and John Saxon, but he died that same year, so he never got to do it.
Yeah, he passed away in 2007 in a car accident with his son.
Very, very sad.
Tragic, yeah.
Happy Christmas!
Happy Christmas!
Do you know what one of my favourite things about this movie is?
Is it Peter?
It's not Peter. It's the use of space. It's the use of the house and its function as a sorority house. I think, obviously, we've talked about the first phone call. The first kill that we see on screen is Claire, who is kind of strangled with, I don't know, is it sort of a hanger thingy? Those plastic things that you put over suits.
A suit
protector.
Clothes.
It's the thing that the suit wears. Yeah. The thing that your clothes wear.
It's like a dust shield.
Clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was throttled with that, which was pretty darn scary. I mean, this film goes to places that you don't necessarily expect it to, and it's not a tremendously bloody film.
No.
Obviously, same year as Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's definitely bloodier than that, but it does kind of do some of the same things in that it films things in such a way that your brain fills in the gaps.
Yeah, it doesn't linger on the violence and the bloodshed. There is a little bit of blood.
There is, yeah, but it's not graphic in any way.
No, it doesn't hang around and linger on it. It's definitely more about the mood and the context, I think, of this movie that's the scariest part of it.
Yeah, but yeah, when we see Claire die, that's kind of a genius moment to me, because what is scarier than like the notion of a raucous sorority house party obscuring the screams of a dying woman, being able to get away with that. It's a big house, but it's not a mansion, you know?
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, I think that's a lot to do with it as well. It's how it's your home. You're meant to be safe in your home.
Yeah.
You've got people around you having a party. That should be the last thing that you would expect to happen.
It's interesting that you say that. Would you consider this to be a home invasion movie?
Well, yes. No. But yeah.
That was a journey.
I mean, someone has invaded their home, so if you're going by the letter of the law, then yeah.
It's an unusual one, though, isn't it?
I wouldn't call it a home invasion movie in the sense that I would categorize this in that genre. So yeah, but no.
Yeah, but no. Okay. Yeah, I just think the use of sound and the use of space is really well done. We get a good enough idea of the geography of the house, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of the POV stuff with the camera work has
Yeah.
done a lot of the heavy lifting with that stuff as well, which is one thing that I appreciate about it is it's so economical with what it's trying to say and what it's trying to, the information that it's given you. It doesn't really waste a lot of time, this movie. It gets sort of straight into it, but then there's not a lot of wasted scenes in terms of, it all feels relevant, I guess.
Absolutely hard agree. Yeah. Do you know they achieved the POV stuff? The cameraman had a shoulder-mounted camera that they made for it.
Like the Predator gun.
Yeah,
but a
kind
camera.
of. Yeah.
Did it have the 3 red dots?
I don't think so. Don't try and work this into the Predator universe. It's not also a Predator prequel.
God, you know me so well.
I do. So it's not until after Claire dies that we sort of start to get to know the sorority sisters a little bit better.
Yeah.
And the house mother as well. Let's not forget Mrs. Mack.
Mrs. Mack. Yeah, Mrs. Mack is great. We mentioned her earlier, but she's, I don't know, she's very protective over the young women. She's got her own thing going on with the booze hidden in books and toilet cisterns and
look
at work.
Everyone has their own ways of coping, okay? It's not my place to judge.
Yeah, and she seems quite happy, you know.
Yeah, she's got a cat.
Yeah.
Cats and hats.
Yeah.
Cats, hats and booze.
Cats, hats and booze. That should be the name of your bar.
That would be the name of my autobiography.
And she kind of, because Claire's dad, he's very prim and proper and
stuffy.
Is that what that means, stuffy?
He's got a stick up his arse.
Yeah. Yeah, he sort of hangs around for a bit and then disappears.
He's kind of the main proponent that starts off the investigation, right? It's only him alerting people that Claire hasn't shown up that they start to realise something might be wrong.
Right. Yes, and that's when they bring in Saxon. Get Saxon on it.
Looking weirdly like Zac Efron in this movie.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah.
It creeps me out.
Zac Efron for Lieutenant Fuller for the Elm Street reboot that's coming probably quite soon.
I mean, yeah, they've tried it already. That was more than a decade ago.
Yeah, so...
It's got to be coming back around.
Yeah, it's due another go, I think, yeah.
God. Ugh, got that to look forward to.
And then when Saxon's on it, he's like, yeah, let's get on some wiretapping.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, yes, John Saxon, you're doing something. Good man.
Well, it's not until... They report the phone calls separately, though, don't they?
Mm.
Because it's Barb and is it Phil who go to the police station to report the calls?
Mm.
And Barb pulls the prank on the idiot cop behind the desk.
Yeah, she says the word fellatio. And fellatio, that's a Greek word.
Yeah.
You're right. What does it mean?
We'll talk about that later, shall we?
Yeah, so it's not... So the investigation is not started or taken seriously until a man reports it, you say?
You could say that, yes.
Interesting. Until the Monopoly guy turns up. And they're like, oh, you've got properties. Yeah, we'll take you seriously, sir. But, then Saxon's like, get on the wiretapping. And I don't know how old wiretapping is, but I feel like that was probably quite early days in the wiretapping technology world, wasn't it?
I don't think there's as much cardio involved these days.
No.
Because that dude was running up and down corridors.
It felt way more labour intensive than I assumed it would be.
Yeah, same.
I just put a sticker on a phone or something. You know, like the magnet under the car, but on the phone. But yeah, I found that very tense though. Like,
yeah, it was.
Particularly when they're like, you've got to stay on the phone and keep him talking because they need to locate him, triangulate his position. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting part of the movie as well, something I probably wasn't expecting. Yeah, just quite tense because they're trying to figure it out. And then obviously when they do figure it out, as you know. So
to me, this is where it sort of shows its giallo influence on its sleeve, because giallos are, by their very nature, mysteries. That they're not simply slashers. There is a mystery to be solved. Really?
Is that like a prerequisite? Is that the thing that...
Well, yeah. So giallo is just the Italian word for yellow. And that's because all the crime novels had yellow jackets. So that's where the name comes from. So yeah, there was always an investigation element to those, which to me absolutely makes this like giallo adjacent.
Yeah.
For many other reasons, obviously kind of the POV stuff as well screams giallo.
Yeah, and there's some really interesting shots as well that did remind me of kind of some of the... I'm not familiar with giallo in the same way that you are, nowhere near, but I've seen a couple.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a couple of Argentos. Yeah, and you need a John Saxon in it to be a giallo as well.
Do you?
Yeah.
I think that's going to limit you a little bit.
We haven't really spoken about the off-screen death, which is when the investigation is being carried out and they're doing the phone tapping and all of that stuff. They're looking for Claire, and in doing so, they come across the corpse of another victim, an off-screen death, who turns out to be a child.
Yeah, they do say she's quite a young girl, don't they?
Yeah. And that is presumably related?
Well, I've never been sure about that, you know. So you're convinced it's related?
Yeah, I think so.
Because my assumption was always just that we're supposed to think it's related, but it's sort of to throw us off the scent. Because if there are murders happening, you know, across town, then it's not going to make us think the killer's as close as he really is.
True.
To throw you off the scent.
Add a question mark into the location and where things are happening and how they're going down, for sure. I hadn't thought of it that way, but I would assume that it would be the same person.
Okay.
A crazed approach to the house. Someone notices him and he murders them. His
victims seem not uniquely female. There is at least one male victim. There's the cop that's sat outside in the staking out the house in the car. Are all of his other victims female?
I believe so.
So he does have a problem with women then, it seems.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in a sorority house, so it's fair to assume.
He's definitely... Well, he's targeting the women.
And he's kind of role-playing when he phones them, talking to Mommy and Agnes.
Yeah.
So he's definitely got an issue with women.
He has many issues, I feel. But yeah, he's definitely targeting the women. The language that he uses on the telephone is directed at the women. And, you know, I don't want to say what was said on the phone because it's horrible.
Yeah.
But PPC, as we said earlier.
PPC, yeah.
It's gendered. It's a gendered attack.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's one of the reasons I love the C word, though, because it is uniquely female. And to me, there's like power in it because it's, as far as swear words go, it's the last taboo.
Yeah, I like it. I must admit, I enjoy using it. I enjoy using it when people aren't expecting you to use it.
Yeah.
It's the best.
But I can understand... I can see why it was included here.
Yeah, it works. It works within the keeping of the whole thing.
Yeah. And the framing of it as kind of a feminist movie.
It is. And I know you said earlier that it wasn't intentional, but it is that.
Do you know what?
If that's what you think it is, that's what it is. And
that's exactly what I was going to say. If all art is subjective, then no matter what the artist intended, if you are able to read it in a certain way and it means that to you, then yeah.
And it's weird when you're making films, I assume, I don't know, you're trying to make what's in your head, you know, come out onto the screen. But at the end of the day, it is multiple people working on this. And it is kind of a bit of like, well, we'll just try and see. But what you end up with is probably quite often quite different to what you had in your head. I don't know. There must be a lot of outliers that make exactly the vision that they're intending, like the Nolans and
Paul Thomas Anderson
and Wes Anderson.
You said it. In my head, I was just like, should I play with you for a little bit? Where's Bentley? Where's Studi?
I see. All I was thinking is Craven because of the Elm Street connection. Where's Craven? And I couldn't get it out of my head. But yeah, those people, they get their vision probably quite clearly out on screen. But I do feel like a lot of the time it must be kind of a bit of an accident.
More of a collaborative thing.
Collaborative effort, what you turn out. And hopefully you're listening to people along the way that have got other ideas. So I think inevitably, hopefully things do change.
Yeah, I will say from what I've read, it does seem to be pretty close to Bob Clark's vision. Because he was asked to make a number of changes and he didn't.
Did they ask him to take out the bit where Margot Kidder explains that turtles have sex for 3 days?
I don't believe so. That's true, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Knackering, right?
Yeah. I can't imagine doing anything for 3 days.
Not solidly. Playing Gran Turismo, maybe.
Yeah, I could do that.
See you in 72 hours. But yeah, it sounds like, I've forgotten his name. Whoever the guy was who wrote the script, I'm so sorry. It sounds like Bob Clark made a number of changes to the script.
Roy Moore.
Okay. So yeah, the original script had way more graphic kills, which Clark talked him out of. Like, he talked him into taking some of that out. Bob Clark tweaked the script to add a lot of the humor, which I think was a really welcome inclusion.
Agreed. I really enjoy the humor of this movie.
Yeah.
I think it's just about right. There's not too much of it. It's a pretty tense and dark movie. So I do appreciate that humor to like
puncture the tension a little bit.
The tension.
Mm-hmm.
And also it adds character to these people.
I was literally just about to say, it gives the movie personality.
Yeah, it gives them personality. And I think we spoke about another movie the other day where I had a bit of an issue with some of the characters, and that was a slasher movie, actually.
Yes, yeah.
And I think that the comedic stuff is really telling on Barb's character and Mrs. Mack as well.
Yeah.
I think they're the two funniest characters.
Yes, definitely. Barb just cracking open a beer in the police station.
Yeah.
I love it.
She's a rebel, and you learn more about her character. She's not really close to her parents, I guess, from what I can gather. So she's probably just like, well, fuck you to everyone kind of thing. I'll do what I want.
I love it. Anarchy.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. So it's funny, but also it makes the characters way more richer.
Yeah.
And that's the things that I grab onto, I think, in these kind of movies, particularly.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to skip ahead to the end, but just in terms of other stuff that Clark was asked to change, the biggest thing was that the studio wanted him to completely alter the ending. They wanted the killer to be revealed to be Claire's boyfriend, but he point blank refused.
Yeah.
He wanted the more ambiguous ending, arguably bleaker.
It's definitely bleak, yeah.
But also the ending that the studio wanted absolutely would not have made sense, because Claire's boyfriend was pictured at several times. Like, geographically, it could not have been him.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad he stuck to his guns.
Me too. I do enjoy is perhaps the wrong word to use, but I do feel like the ending is a bit of a gut punch.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ambiguous.
Well,
are we going there? Are we going to the ending?
No, not yet. Sorry, we've got all the ground to cover yet. I am a big fan of this film. I've made no secret of that. But I can't remember the first time I watched it. I don't remember what my experience with it was the first time. Because I've seen it so many times over the years. So I'm curious to ask you, as somebody who only saw it 2 years ago for the first time, what was your experience with it that first time? You said you weren't really aware of it, so you didn't know the story, you didn't know how it played out.
No.
Did you guess that the calls were coming from inside the house? Were you compelled by the mystery of it?
I enjoyed the unknowing of it, the confusion of it. I definitely.
Did you guess how it would play out? Did you find it predictable, or did you think it was quite surprising?
I think I probably would have assumed that it was Peter.
Would you?
Yeah.
All signs point to, except if you're paying very close attention.
Yes. Is there not a shot of when Barb is being killed as well, of Billy? And he does look remarkably like Peter.
He does. It was a different actor, obviously, but there are certain suggestions throughout, and this is what I mean when I say if you're paying very close attention. I mean very close. That really fucking haunting shot where you just see the eye through the crack of the door, and it's a brown eye, and Peter has blue eyes.
Right.
So there are giveaways, but you really do have to be paying attention.
That is not something that I would pick up on my 50th viewing. I don't know what colour Arnold Schwarzenegger's eyes are.
And you've looked at him a lot.
I have looked at him a lot.
Well, one of them's red, right? And blinking.
Yeah. Maybe I could pick them out of a crowd. Yeah, I guess I was just enjoying the ride of this film. I don't think that I was really invested in the mystery of it, but I was enjoying the craft of it and the characters.
Okay.
I keep coming back to the characters, but I think for me that is probably my favourite thing about this.
It's definitely one of the strongest parts of the movie, for sure. And they're really well written.
Yeah.
I particularly love Jess, actually. We've not talked enough about Jess as a character, because initially she's sort of shown to be this, like, she's very well spoken, bordering on posh.
Well, she's
I would
British.
say.
We all speak like that.
We all know the Queen. Well, not anymore. But she's sort of portrayed as being like prim and proper, and You sort of initially get the idea that she's a bit of a good girl.
Yeah.
But then you find out that she's dating in real life, significantly older man. I don't know how old his character was supposed to be.
Well, he was a student boy, wasn't he, or doing the piano at people?
But wasn't he like 38 in real life?
Was he?
Yeah, he was
Oh my
much
God.
older. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It's hard to say. Everyone just looked a little bit older in the 70s. It's really hard.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell. They're either
Yeah.
19 or 38.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So they were dating.
they were
Jess and
dating.
Peter. He's doing his piano thing. He's like, I've got to do the piano really well at people. And I'm really like stressed out about it, actually. And I appreciate it if you didn't come to me with news about having child.
And then he commits GPH,
Yeah.
grievous piano harm.
Yeah.
Um,
By assaulting a piano with a hammer?
He wrecks it. No,
Yeah.
it's a microphone stand or something.
Was it?
Yeah.
I assumed you meant, at first my brain was thinking, oh, because he played that piano so hard.
It was sick.
He
Tore it up.
he was sweating, and like during that scene I said to you, is this good or not good? It is like, because he's been building up to this, and he's performing this piano piece in front of these aging white men in funny robes and big medallions. They're very important people.
Clearly.
Yeah. And he was really stressed out about it, and he was playing it, but I couldn't tell whether that was he was doing a good job or a bad job. But you tell me that he was doing a bad job.
It wasn't great.
But you only know that because you are familiar with the mechanics of a piano.
I used to play the piano, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a weird way of saying you used to play the piano. Yes, I'm familiar with the mechanics.
Is that a weird thing to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're a weird dude.
Thanks. Fills me with such confidence. Merry Christmas. You're a weird dude, Dan.
Am I wrong?
No.
It's one of the reasons I love you.
You're absolutely right.
But yeah, so that leads us to kind of the central character motivations for those two. He is livid, tries to forbid her to get the abortion.
Yeah.
And she says, no, my body, my choice, or words to those effect, to that effect rather. And he's like, well, let's get married then. It's a very, very old-fashioned show of like chivalry.
Well, we must get married.
Yeah. But I love her reaction. She's just like, no, that's ludicrous. Stop it.
And because of the era in which it came out as well, and I know you say this, it wasn't intentional, but it definitely was a year after the Roe v. Wade thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely would have played a part into people's viewing experience while watching this movie, I'm assuming.
Yes, I would say so.
Relevant news.
Mm-hmm. Sad to say you could say the same thing these days.
Yeah.
But interestingly, I definitely do consider this to be a feminist slasher. Obviously, the 2019 remake, which I know you haven't seen, you've been spared. From my opinion, it's as bad as everybody says it is.
Okay.
I can see what they were trying to do. I don't blame Sophia Takal. I think it was a stupid move to make it a PG-13, which apparently was her choice. But there was a lot of studio fuckery. She was rushed. It didn't go well, shall we say. So I don't blame the director. And I do think there were some really interesting ideas there. But they were going for such a heavy-handed feminist take on what I believe is an already really feminist movie. But they tried to make it up to date by, obviously they had mobile phones. It wasn't a landline.
Yeah.
But most of the...
We're getting a Snapchat from from Billy.
Yeah. They obviously had to make changes to bring it up to date. But the stuff that they tried to do to make it a more modern take on feminism was just like to talk about vibrators and the sisterhood and stuff. And it was a bit too cringy for me.
Yeah.
It was a bit too heavy-handed. But I can see what they were trying to do, and there were some nice ideas. But in trying to do that, they sort of inadvertently made a film that was, I think, to me, less a feminist slasher than the original.
I think for me, things are probably better when they're maybe a bit more subtle. I don't necessarily think Black Christmas 74 is subtle. I think it's the themes of it are in your face, whether or not intentional. Did we watch a trailer or something for this 2019 one? Is that the one with
Imogen Poots, isn't it?
Imogen Poots and
Carrie
Sawboy?
Elwes.
Yeah, Carrie Elwes. Yeah, Twister, unrealized that it is unrealized. We've got to watch Twister.
Oh God, do we?
Great movie. Yeah, Carrie Elwes is in it. You like him? And Bill Paxton.
I like Bill Paxton.
Yeah, you like Helen Hunt.
Do I?
Yeah.
Sure.
And
I've seen Twister, you know that, right?
it's a great movie, isn't it? They've got
It was fine in 1997.
Do you remember the bit with the cow? They've got a cow and it flies across the screen. What were we saying? Remakes. There was also a 2006 version, which I obviously wasn't aware of.
I'm not a fan of that one, but a lot of people sing its praises. A lot of people sort of say in hindsight, everyone was a bit too harsh at the time, but it didn't do much for me.
That's fair enough. I think it's probably safe to say that none of them live up to the original.
No, nowhere near.
Do you think that you could make another version of this that's good or even necessary?
Good, yes. Necessary, no.
I would tend to agree with that. I think, yeah. I don't think it's because it doesn't feel very dated to me.
No, it doesn't. Not at all.
It feels super modern. Aside from the technological aspects with the landline stuff
and the fashion,
which
I love.
Yeah, but it's not dated. It feels quite contemporary to me.
It does, yeah.
In all of its execution with the style. You mentioned the sound with what they do with the sound. How it's shot.
I love what they do with the sound, actually. We've not talked about that very much, but like the discordant sort of piano stuff.
When you talk about when Peter's smashing a piano with his hands. Keir Dullea did the soundtrack for this movie.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
Oh, you nearly had me then. Well, he sort of did, because that sound when he's smashing the piano reoccurs. The sound of whatever it is hitting all the keys at once.
Yeah.
In a really haphazard way, that sound does reoccur.
And that's interesting because if you're just randomly smashing piano keys as well, it does kind of feel like that would be a fair representation of what madness is. Just hearing all of those notes hit at the same time and not being able to make sense of any of them or pick out one note from the other.
I guess so. We've talked a little bit about it being a feminist movie. The characters that we focus on are predominantly female. Do you think there are any likable male characters in this film?
Yeah, I think Saxon boy.
Anybody beyond Saxon?
I think no. Peter's a dick. Peter's a massive bellend.
Yeah, Peter's a wanker.
And then you've got the idiot policeman at a police station.
Yeah, not great.
Harmless, but a bit. Well, he's not harmless actually. He's a bit dismissive initially.
Yeah.
So he's not harmless. And then there are a few other male characters. You've got Claire's dad, who's a prude. I
mean, he's not a bad guy, but he's not great.
Well, who knows? He might be a bad guy. Who knows what he's got in his basement?
You've got the men who are in the search party who knock on the back door of a sorority house holding guns in the middle of the night.
Yeah, we'll keep you safe.
Yeah, like that's going to be well received.
Yeah,
Fuck off. Just Saxon then.
It's just Saxon for me. But even his character is kind of not entirely innocent.
He's likable though.
He's likable and he's got good intentions, but I think for me, particularly the second time watching this, I thought, he is a bit of a victim of his own ego.
I guess so, yeah.
He's talking to Jess and Peter storms out after they've had their argument about their situation. Saxon clocks him and then he brings it up again later at the end of the movie and he says, yeah, I always had a hunch it was Peter. And then that's it. It's like,
my confirmation bias. I was right.
Yeah, exactly. So it is like ego. He is good. He's the best of the dudes, I would say, but he's still
problematic.
He's
Some of the female characters are problematic though.
Nobody's
a perfect person in this. Mrs. Mack is quite problematic. Let's be honest.
She's got a cat.
Raging booze hound.
She's not driving anywhere. She's being driven around by Claire's dad.
That's true. Yeah.
Which is fine.
Safety.
Get on with it. Safety as long as you're not operating any heavy machinery. I don't know.
She's just operating a sorority house.
Yeah, I'm not advocating drinking and going to work. Check your contract. Sure.
I can. I'm self-employed.
Yeah, you do.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. I should probably point that out. We haven't even talked about Barb's death, you know. I was sad to see her go, but unsurprised because the sassy girls seldom make it, especially back then.
Yeah, I was hoping she would make it.
Yeah, me too. But a cool death scene.
Well, that's when you get a flash of Billy's face.
Yes.
And you think it's Peter. Billy. But apparently he's got different eye colours.
Yeah. And it's a different man.
I know. You know I've got a problem recognising faces. To me, it's the same man.
Okay. But yeah, she's stabbed to death, isn't she, by, I believe it's a unicorn statue.
Is it
like a glass unicorn?
Glass unicorn.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
some of the shots there are actually really well done. I don't know, I hesitate to call it beautiful because it's a woman being stabbed to death. But it's very cinematic.
It's very
for a very low budget slasher movie.
Yeah, and it's probably the most graphic, is it, of the deaths?
I think so, yeah.
And obviously, by its very nature, it's the phallic nature of the unicorn statue, as you've mentioned. It does feel like this is where everything is coming to a head, and it's maybe the thing that is maybe most memorable about this film is her death, perhaps. This might be something that I think about when in 5 years when you say, do you remember Black Christmas? I'm thinking, oh yeah, Margot Kidder. I'm thinking Margot Kidder talking about turtles having sex for 3 days and saying fellatio quite a bit.
It's one of the most memorable things. I don't know. The thing I always think of is Claire in plastic wrap.
Is it?
On the rocking chair.
Okay.
That haunts me. Well, we as the audience at this point don't yet know that it's not Peter, because it's the point at which Jess is told over the phone the call is coming from inside the house. And then Peter shows up. I think at that point she finds out that Phil and Barb are dead.
But I thought that the only reason she's even not getting out immediately is because she thinks
she wants to go and check on them.
Yeah.
But I think on the phone they're just like, just get out. Like,
yeah, the policeman definitely does say, look, just get out. Ask me no questions at first. But then I'm immediately going to tell you that the killer's in the house.
Yes, a split second later. But yeah, it's at that point that Peter shows back up and they end up in the basement.
And she thinks, could be Peter.
Well, yeah, why wouldn't she?
He's been a bit weird.
Yeah, and I think maybe Saxon's sort of been in her ear a little bit.
True.
So he appears at the window, but then he has an off-screen death.
Who, Peter?
Peter.
Is he dead?
Yeah, she kills him.
I thought he was just unconscious.
No. When she's like right at the end, when she's sedated, and they say, oh, she's going to be out for like 3-4 hours, and the police are stationed around her bed, and then everybody leaves. They're talking about how he's dead.
Right. Okay. Oh, I missed that.
And then obviously we get the inverse of the opening scene where we had the POV camera going towards the house. At the end, we've got the camera it's not POV anymore, but the camera moving away from the house.
Yeah.
And you've just got that fucking haunting shot. You know she's in there, completely defenseless, out cold. You see that horrible shot of Claire in plastic wrap at the window in the attic. And then as the camera pans out, you hear the phone ringing. And then the movie's just like, that's it. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah, it's a pretty bleak ending, but I think it's a good ending for sure. I think it's the right ending for this movie.
Agreed, but oh my God. Yeah, it's stark.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. It's in stark contrast to the humour that's peppered throughout and any kind of brevity that we get. And it's just like, no, nobody's safe. Soz. It's dark, man.
And then all of the guys are like, yeah, let's pat ourselves on the back. We did a good job here, apart from Peter, who's dead.
Yeah, we did a really good job that didn't involve searching the attic.
Yeah.
And finding multiple bodies. And maybe a cat. We never see Claude again.
We don't know what's happened to Claude.
I'm going to assume he's fine. I love the choice to just have the phone ringing over the credits. No music, just that haunting phone. Oh. Yeah. So good.
And like you say, defenseless.
Can I say that she's one of my favourite Final Girls?
Because she doesn't like.
Well, Final Girl implies that she survives.
Well, she survives the movie.
Exactly. So can I say she's one of my favourite Final Girls?
Yeah, you can, because who knows? If they'd have made a sequel, maybe she wakes up.
Maybe she metabolizes the sedative really quickly.
Yeah.
So, that's it for Black Christmas. Do you have any other thoughts? Any trivia? Anything you want to say?
Not really. Just that I really like this one. It's maybe top 3 slashers, I would say.
Have you seen more than 3?
I don't know if I've seen more than 3. Does A Nightmare on Elm Street count? Because that's my top 1.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah, it's definitely
it's way more inventive than the average slasher. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah, it's really well made. I really love the characters. I really love some of the performances.
He's got some great one-liners.
Yeah. Some great one-liners. It's really economical.
Nice jumper.
Who's got a nice jumper?
Freddy Krueger.
Oh, I'm talking about Black Christmas.
Oh, right.
Yeah, no, I like this one a lot. I'm glad that we watched it again.
Oh, good.
I enjoyed watching this one.
I've got to be honest, that surprised me.
Okay.
I thought you would be underwhelmed. more than anything.
It's quick as well. It's brisk. It's pacey.
It is,
it's
know.
not. It's
I
it's not a drag.
No, it's funny because I associate the 70s with really slow burn horror.
Yeah.
And you're right, this kind of moves along really well.
It does. And maybe that's another reason why it feels more contemporary.
Yeah.
It just doesn't need anything. It doesn't need another version of this. This is the perfect version of this. And I don't think that you can really remake this and make it any better. So why bother?
No, exactly.
Unless you want money.
Well, they do though, don't they? Yeah. They like money.
They do love money.
Did you know that Malcolm McDowell almost played Peter?
Oh no, I would hate that.
Same, but it's a decision he regrets to this day.
Is it?
He says, yeah.
Yeah. It was a bad decision not to do it, but I'm glad that he decided not to.
It was a bad decision for him. Yeah. Good decision for us.
Yeah, agreed.
What else have we got? Apparently, in every scene where Margot Kidder's character Barb was drinking, Kidder insisted on it being real alcohol.
Of course she did.
The whole time.
I love her.
Legend.
Can I go on record and say that I might be in love with Margot Kidder? As well as you, obviously, you're my number one. But Margot Kidder...
But she's a close second.
She's a close second.
I was never Lois Lane, so...
No, exactly.
I can't compete.
Yeah. Early childhood memories. My Superman costume.
Oh, bless you.
Jumping off my nan's coffee table.
Causing chaos, no doubt.
No, I was saving the world with my laser eyes.
But yeah, so we've already talked a little bit about it not actively being a feminist movie, but Bob Clark did make the active decision not to sexualize any of the female characters, and he's specified there would be no nudity, which was somewhat unusual at the time. Definitely unusual for slashers going forward.
Yeah, this was made 10 years later. There's no way you would have had that kind of
boobs galore, man.
Yeah, it would have been
everywhere.
Well, where are the tits?
Yeah.
It's great, but let's just put some more tits in there, Bob Clark. Yeah, good. It's curious, isn't it? Like, he's like, I didn't really mean to make a feminist movie. That wasn't what I was going for, but it kind of feels like it was.
Yeah.
And I like that. I think that's maybe, like I said earlier, the unintentional nature of it.
Feels more authentic, maybe. It doesn't feel too try-hard.
Feels more authentic. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was pretty influential. Like, there was a slew of sorority-based horrors that came in its wake. Obviously, House on Sorority Row, which was remade as just Sorority Row. Very mediocre. Things like Sorority House Massacre, Hell Night kind of counts, with Linda Blair. You could say Happy Death Day, maybe?
Yeah.
Initiation more recently, so... it definitely sparked something of a trend, I would say. And I think it's pretty obvious. Like, it wears its influences on its sleeve, but also in turn it was incredibly influential. So I love it. No notes. Good. I mean, I did have a lot of literal notes, but... yeah.
Good movie. Enjoyed it. Like it. So I guess we need to announce what we're doing next week.
We do, yeah.
This time next week will be New Year's Day?
It will be not Christmas Day.
Is it New Year's Day or New Year's Eve?
I think it's New Year's Day, exactly a week after Christmas Day, right?
Yeah. So it's Monday, the New Year's Day?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So next week we're doing Rare Exports.
We are, yeah. First time watch for you? Yes.
And again, there's a couple of versions of this, isn't there? Or are they different movies? It's not a remake of a remake.
There may be a short film.
Oh, okay. Because I looked on Letterboxd and there was confusion because I was trying to find which one that you meant, and I had to ask you.
Rare Exports, A Christmas Tale, I believe. Yeah, so get ready for a lot of old man penis.
You mean just in general? Or in the film?
In the film, not in life.
Thank God. As he wipes his sweaty brow.